Hi, how are you? Dr. MUSO in the house. Today we want to talk about the Ndebele state, but we want to talk about the Ndebele Shona relations. How the Ndebele related, how they coexisted with the Shona. We've got a lot of myths, a lot of arguments, a lot of writings on how the Ndebele coexisted with the Shona people. So today we want to focus on that and see whether they coexisted peacefully with the Shona people. So let's start with the side that the Ndebele, they coexisted peacefully with the Shonas. So let's start with the coexistence between the Ndebele and the Shona people. So we can say that they coexisted peacefully to a large extent. These people, they coexisted peacefully to a large extent. Why do we say so? Number one, let's talk about the issue of names. It is said that it was common to see a Ndebele giving a child a Shona name, or a Shona giving a Ndebele a Ndebele what name. A Shona person giving that child a Ndebele name, or a Ndebele person giving that child a Shona name. So it was common. That clearly reveals that the relations between these two groups, they were cordial to a greater what extent. Then you also talk about number two, the issue of totems. It is said that the Shona people, some of them now, they ended up adopting the totems that were used by the Ndebele people. For example, you talk about people such as the Dube. People were now using totems that were related to animals. The Dube, the Ndlovu people. Those people now, we see that they were adopting totems from the Ndebele culture. So adopting totems from the Ndebele culture, it reveals that the relations between these two groups, they were cordial to a greater what extent. Then number three, you move on, you also talk about the relations are being cordial in the sense that Lobebula, it is said that he participated in some activities that took place in the Ndebele state. How did he participate? Number one, Lobebula, he paid tribute to some of the Shona religious leaders. Lobebula, by paying tribute to the Shona religious leaders, it reveals that the relations, they were cordial. You are seeing that you religious leaders know more about this area. We only came around 1839, 1840, but you were already here. So I'm paying tribute to show that I respect the work that you do in the what in the state. Lobengula, it is also said that Lobengula, he solved some disputes that took place in Mashonaland. Some chieftains in Mashonaland, they fought against each other, issue of succession problems, and Lobengula, he intervened, he stopped disputes that were taking place. That on its own now, it clearly reveals that the relations between these two groups, they were cordial to a greater extent. Lobengula, again, it is said that he gave some of his animals to some of the Shona chieftains in Mashonaland under that system which was called Ronzera or Ukusisa. So some chieftains in Mashonaland who wanted animals to use, they were given these animals by Lobengula, clearly revealing that the relations between these two groups, they were cordial to a greater extent. Then you move on, you talk about religious leaders, the issue of religious leaders. It is said that the Shona religious leaders and the Ndebele religious leaders, they worked together. They went to Matonjeni, they went to Matopo, they went to Ntabaya Kadzimambo, they went to Manyanga, they went to Njelele, they collaborated, they worked together. So working together of the Shona religious leaders and the Ndebele religious leaders now, it clearly reveals that the relations between these two groups, they were cordial. Then we move on, we talk about the army. The army of the Ndebele, it consisted of the Ndebele and the Shona. So the Ndebele people, the Shona people, they were both in the army. They worked together in the army. Again, revealing that their relations, they were cordial to a greater extent. You move on, you also talk about the Inywana festival. The Inywana festival. It is said that when they celebrated the Inywana festival, the Shona, they brought their first fruits. The Ndebele brought their first fruits and they ate together. So by so doing now, it reveals that the relations between these two groups, they were cordial. Why? It is because we see them cooperating, integrating, doing their things together. Then you talk about the culture. Another issue of what? Of the culture. Which culture are we talking about? The piercing of the ear. It is said that some Shona, the elderly members in the society, especially the Shona people, they started to pierce ears like what the Ndebele elderly members in the society were doing. So removing a piece of skin from their ear. Now it was done by the Ndebele and the Shona elderly members in the society. They also started to do that. Doing that clearly reveals that their relations, they were cordial to a greater extent. Then you move on, you talk about marriage. What can we say about marriage? It was common to see a Ndebele marrying a Shona marrying a Ndebele. So the issue of marriage now again reveals that the relations between these two groups, they were cordial to a greater extent because such marriages, they were common. Although marriages such as that were not allowed, but they were common in the Ndebele state. So clearly again revealing that the relations between the Ndebele and the Shona, they were cordial to a greater extent. You can say this now, however, some scholars would want to argue that the relations, we see that they were hostile. Why? It is because of one or 2 points. So what can we say on the other side? These relations now, they were hostile. Why do we say so? Number one, the issue of the caste system. The caste system, what are we talking about? The caste system, we have said that the Shona, the Hole people, were the lowest group in the society. They were undermined. They were ill-treated. So being the lowest group in the society, it clearly shows that the relations between these two groups, they were cordial to a lesser extent. Why? It is because the Shona were the lowest group in their social system. Then number two, you talk about the issue of raiding. It is said that the Shona were always raided by the Ndebele. But when we are arguing about this now, we are supposed to be very careful. Why? Because it is Eurocentric ideologies that want to bring about this idea of raid, that the Shonas, they were always raided by the Ndebele. The Shonas were at the verge of extinction. The Shonas were always retreating to the mountains, fearing to be raided by the Ndebeles. But however, a close analysis has revealed that the relations between these two groups, they were cordial to a greater extent. Although ratings were done, yes, but we see that people who were raided, chiefdoms who were raided, were those chiefdoms who were rebellious. So rebellious chiefdoms, we see that they were raided time and again. But those chiefdoms now, who worked with the Muslims, who worked with the Lobegula later on, we see that they had relations, we see that they were cordial, they were peaceful, they were not hostile. And by so doing, we are seeing that the relations between the Shona and the Ndebele, they were cordial to a greater extent. Although we got some elements which we can say that these relations, they were cordial, but to a lesser extent. So that is what we have on the Ndebele Shona relations. Thank you so much. It's Dr. MUSO.